We are Southeastern 16 as we cover all things SEC as we're getting ready for the 2024 college football season. We're previewing all 16 teams, and today it is the Auburn Tigers' turn. Brad Law of the Auburn Sports Network, also the Village Vice podcast. He'll break down the Auburn Tigers with us. But first, let's remind you about our friends at Bet Online, the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything online sports betting. Right now, you can receive a 50% free bet of up to $250 on your first deposit to bet on anything from the Olympics to baseball to Formula One racing. Bet Online has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. When the game's over, you can head over to the online casino, get in on a game of blackjack or poker, unwind with one of the over 150 slots games. You can head over to the website today to get in on the action. Use promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, for your 50% free bet credit on your first deposit up to $250. Bet Online, the game starts here. Well, Brad, appreciate you coming on, talking some Auburn football. Hey, we're getting so close to this 2024 season.
Yeah, I think we're down to 4 or 5 free Saturdays before we have college football again, and it feels a little bit different. Every now and then there's like just a little hint of a chill in the air sometimes if you're out early enough, and we love it. It's phenomenal.
So 2024 year 2 for Hugh Freeze, year 1 6-7. Obviously not what Auburn would have liked. What has been to you kind of the focus point since the last game last year, heading into the spring, into the summer? What has been one big focus for Auburn?
I think it's continuing the recruiting momentum and relationship building. Hugh Freeze said the 25 and 26 classes in particular will be the ones that really help determine the future of the program under his leadership. And so, the 24 season is a part of that. You got to have a successful 24 in order to continue your momentum in 25 and 26. And to do that, you had to replenish the wide receiving core. You had to add some bodies to the defensive line. And you needed to take a step up in a couple of other areas, but mainly wide receiver, interior defensive line, add a pass rusher. And they did that in the offseason. And so, with 5 home games to start the year, a chance for some early momentum, they sort of went out and did, I thought, the best job they could do going into year 2 in replenishing the 2 clearest areas of need going into the year.
Yeah, and let's start with the offense here. And there's no secret last year the passing offense was not great. But like you said, they have enhanced the wide receiver room big time. We'll talk about that in a second. But I want to talk Payton Thorne for a second. He's coming into year 2 as being the main starter under Hugh Freeze, who we all know he has been a great offensive coach, kind of a great quarterbacks coach over the years. What is it? And a lot of folks were saying, hey, is Auburn going to go to the portal? Are they going to get a new quarterback? But it's obvious that Payton Thorne's the guy. That's who Hugh Freeze wants. What is it about Payton Thorne to you, being around the program, that Hugh Freeze says, yeah, he's my guy. I want him to lead this Auburn team?
I think part of that answer, the graham cracker crust to the pie, so to speak, like the foundation of that is just what you said. He's Hugh Freeze's guy. And I think he wants to create a culture and a program where if you bring a player in, you believe in that player and you want to teach and you want to mentor and you want to help that player get better from one year to the next. Payton's attitude is, I can never watch too much film. There's always more to study. There's always more to learn. He's added a great deal of confidence from the end of last year to now getting ready for fall camp. And at media days, he talked about the reason for that confidence. And a big part of that was the identity of the offense and the commitment to the identity of the offense. You saw Payton's numbers go up, that looked better. They improved. And he just looked more in command the second half of last season. What happened the second half of last season? They stopped rotating quarterbacks. They made more of a commitment to the true RPO nature of an offense. And in any of the games that Auburn lost, I would tell you probably outside of Texas A&M and LSU, Payton played well enough to win the game. Auburn, you didn't look at those games and go, clearly the quarterback's the reason they lost the game. So a lot more confidence. when he was already gaining more confidence toward the end of the year. People count bowl games. I understand the bowl game wasn't good. Bowl games don't count unless they're playoff games. That's sort of the way that's the way we've been taught by ESPN, and that's the way that college football in general works now. That's the message they've delivered, is that they don't really count unless they're playoff games. So I don't count the bowl game against Payton Thorne.
And when it comes to guys around Payton Thorne, we mentioned wide receiver room, and I'm so excited to see Cam Coleman, in a game. He's just watching him in high school, and he's just a dude. Excited to see him. You got guys Perry Thompson, Robert Lewis, the wide receiver room. I think, and you've watched a lot of Auburn football over the years, and of being part of the radio crew. I mean, this has got to be one of the most solid wide receiver rooms we've seen in a while at Auburn.
Yeah, it has the potential to be one of the best. I before I worked on the radio crew, I was just a fan, and like so many people watching, I was a fan, and so I watched that group in 2002 with Devin Aroma-Shadu and Ben Obamanu, and Courtney Taylor came in a year or two later, and Anthony Mix was a part of that crew. Jarris McIntyre. 20 years ago, Auburn had a stacked wide receiver room. This could be the most stacked room since that time. And it does start with Cam Coleman. I've seen Cam. He's every bit as advertised. When you think of the impact that, an AJ Green made when he came into the league, when you think of the impact that Julio Jones made when he came into the league, there are guys who have been in this league as freshmen who look like there is no learning curve. There is. It's not an easy transition, but they make it look like it. And I just think Cam Coleman has all the attributes of those guys and more that we mentioned. He looks ready to come in and from day one be wide receiver one. Now, they brought in Robert Lewis from Georgia State, 600 plus yards a year ago, 1,000 yards in his career. They brought in Keandre Lambert-Smith, the number one receiver on a Penn State team that, oh, by the way, won 10 games back-to-back years. So they have a loaded room, and we didn't even get to Rivaldo Fairweather, who was sort of a combo receiver tight end a year ago. He's a matchup problem. He can win 50-50 balls. And in this offense, if you have multiple receivers who can win 50-50 balls, and you have a tight end who can go up and win a 50-50 ball, and, oh, by the way, you have a strong running game, you can't double team everybody. Like, just schematically, logistically, defenses can't stop that consistently enough. And I think that's what the offense is counting on.
And as far as running the ball goes, I mean, we talk about kind of rebuilding the receiver room. There's no rebuilding that needs to be done with the running game. I mean, around 189 yards per game last year. You bring back Jarquez Hunter, Damari Alston, Jeremiah Cobb. I mean, that's three guys who they are dangerous when you turn them loose.
Yeah, like 20 total touchdowns among the three of those guys, I think, a year ago or close to it. Hunter, had he played in the first game, would have gone over 1,000 yards for the season. That's not a stretch. Damari Alston was injured several games. He averaged 5 yards or so a carry. And Jeremiah Cobb had a stretch where in 3 games he had 1 touch and scored on that one touch. So we love the explosiveness of that group. The only real notable guy or absence in that room is of course Brian Battie because of the tragic circumstances over the summer. But otherwise, it's an offense that was 24th nationally in rushing last year. 24th nationally in rushing when the passing game was struggling as much as it did, and teams just started stacking the box and said, we're going to try to stop you from running. And they did a little, but Auburn was still a top 25 rushing team a year ago. I think the expectation is it starts offensively with the running game, and the balance of the passing game will only help Jarquez, Damari, Jeremiah, and Payton when he goes to run the ball too, which he did effectively.
But all that can't happen but if there's not a good offensive line. So looking at the offensive line, Connor Lew coming back. He was a great freshman offensive lineman a season ago. You got transfer from Mississippi State. What's the offensive line looking like for this year?
Big Percy Lewis, mountain of a man, left tackle. It allows Auburn to move Dylan Wade to left guard. His footwork is exceptional. Dylan's going to be an NFL guard in all likelihood. It is not dissimilar to what Auburn did last year with Wade at left tackle and him playing left tackle allowed Gunnar Britton to move from right tackle to left guard and play there a pretty good bit. And so you felt good about the left side of your offensive line. And that led to, among other things, Auburn being a top 25 rushing team in the face of a struggling pass offense. So I think they feel very good about the left side of the offensive line. On the right side, Jeremiah Wright, local guy, veteran at guard. And then Isaiah Miller, Too Tall Miller, or Tyler Johnson, who's I think a redshirt freshman. Too Tall was not supposed to play as much last year as he did. Then he got in fall camp and wowed everybody. And they said, well, can't keep him off the field. So, yeah, those veteran returners plus Big Percy on the left side. And, the thinking is that the offensive line got better from last year to this year.
Well, let's move over to the defensive side. I want to start with the defensive line. You mentioned that at the start of our conversation here. That's one of kind of the focal points in the offseason. Let's get better at defensive line. Well, my goodness, they went out and just you think as some coaches approach the transfer portal is let's just get as many guys as we can. Hugh Freeze said, let's get the best defensive linemen we can. And I was really impressed with what he was able to do in kind of rebuilding the defensive line out of the portal.
Yeah. Of all the losses from last year's team, Marcus Harris may be the most difficult to replace. He was a leader on the field. He was a leader off the field. This is a guy that we may have talked last year, Chase. He would stay after practice and lead the defensive linemen through additional drills. And we go, no, you're not getting low enough. That's not how we do it. It was a player-led situation. And as you know, when players create the standard and hold others to the standard, then you got the makings of something special. Well, who takes on that mantle this year? You've got Jayson Jones coming back on the interior of the D-line. Zykevious Walker has always had loads of potential. Can he take that step forward? Is it one of the new guys like a Gage Keys or an Isaiah Rakes or a Phillip Bleedy or a Trill Carter? They're going to have 6 guys who can play on the interior of the defensive line. I think in modern football where teams like to go fast, gone are the days of having 2 guys on the inside who play 70 snaps and somebody else who plays 10 or 15. Like 6 guys is probably what you need. And even if none of them earn all SEC honors this year, they could all effectively, did anybody on the Friends cast ever win Best Lead Actor in a series? I don't know, but I'm sure there were a lot of Best Supporting Actor nominations and wins from those 6 guys. And that's what that reminds me of. The Auburn interior defensive line, like the cast of Friends. They just need to show up, be consistent, and kind of lead the way in that defensive line.
The rest of the defense, what's it shaking up to be? I know you got some really talented players. You got Eugene Asante, Jalen McLeod, Keonte Scott, Kayin Lee. Yeah. What's the rest of the defense look like?
I think the secondary is the strength, and you just mentioned some of the guys in the secondary. Keonte was a nickel, but he was a JUCO All-American at corner. And so with Kayin Lee on one side and Keonte on the other, Auburn feels outstanding about its starting cornerbacks. Safety, they've added big physical guys. They added Jaron Thompson, who was a transfer from Texas, played a lot of physical ball. I recently went back and watched last year's Texas-Oklahoma game, and physical presence on the back end. Sylvester Smith is a guy you're going to hear from at a safety spot. Physical, tall, rangy. So Auburn feels good about it. Maybe the strength of the defense is the secondary, both from a talent and depth perspective. And then, Eugene Asante and Austin Keys and Dorian Mousey. And, oh, by the way, some of the younger guys that were a part of this highly ranked recruiting class that are coming in, like a DeMarcus Riddick and others that we expect to see in the linebacking core this year.
And when it comes to special teams, that's been an area Auburn has been strong in recent history as far as special teams go. Brad, what's it look like for Auburn this year?
Oscar Chapman's back to punt the ball, the Australian, boomer. And so, and he almost is a boomer. He's so old. I mean, he's been here for a long time. So he's back. That's going to be a strength for Auburn when they can't move the ball offensively, if they get into those situations. And then, unfortunately, Alex McPherson, who did not miss a kick, and that's not hyperbole, literally didn't miss a kick last year, field goal or extra point, is battling some health issues. And I don't know that we're going to see him this year. In A-Day, we saw Towns Magoo, who's from Auburn High and had offers from Ole Miss and other places, but wanted to stay here, play for his hometown school, and he was clutch at A-Day. Can he be clutch during the season? That's the question. That's what we'll find out. So you have one well-known entity returning in the punting game and one completely unknown in the kicking game. And as for returns, it's kind of the same thing. Keyonte Scott's going to return punts in all likelihood. And then, Brian Battie was the primary kick returner. So without him, someone else will need to step up and return kicks.
Also in the offseason, Hugh Freeze able to get a new staff together. Derek Nix leading the offense. You got DJ Durkin, kind of a veteran SEC defensive coordinator at Auburn. Charles Kelly, part of that staff back at Auburn. Just what do you make of the staff? And it's got to be, and I've heard Hugh Freeze say he feels just more comfortable with this staff that he has this year.
Absolutely. Defensive side first, I think it's about energy. It's about youth. It's about enthusiasm and confidence. And both of those guys, both Charles and DJ, personify that. They are they're well liked. They're well known. They're relationship builders, and players at every stop they've been before love playing for those guys. And so that's what I think of about those hires defensively. And Hugh Freeze has said over and over again about Derek Nix and Kent Austin, the familiarity from the terminology that they use now with the offense to just his comfort knowing they're going to go into a position group meeting. And he's going to say, all right, I need you to tell these guys X, Y, Z. Those coaches will deliver those messages in meetings, on the practice field, wherever. And he knows exactly what message is going to be delivered. Like that old game where you used to whisper something into one person's ear, they whisper it into the ear, then they all go down the line. And by the time you get to the end, the message has changed. There isn't any of that with this group of coaches now. And as you know, anybody watching knows when you are comfortable in your setting, that time when you settle into a new job, there's a period where you have to get comfortable. Once you're comfortable, your productivity tends to go way up.
Yep, that is for sure. We're getting closer to Auburn football kicking off August 31st. They will have Alabama A&M there in Jordan-Hare Stadium. Brad, really appreciate you coming on, talking some Auburn football today. We'll have to do it again soon, but always great to talk with you. Appreciate your time.
Always good to see you, Chase. Always a pleasure. War Eagle to the Auburn fans watching.
We got you covered, all things SEC football here on Southeastern 16, and of course brought to you by BetOnline.